What is going on, guys? Sam Board here. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today I'm going to be taking you through my pull workout, and this is part 2 of the 4-part series where I'm going to be taking you through my full training split. So I've taken you through my chest and shoulder workout. This is going to be back and rear delts, and then we're going to go on to arms and side delts, and then legs. So the main thing I just want to put a focus on today, guys, is just making sure we're separating our back into individual muscle groups, because I think that's something that a lot of people really fail to do. You know, if we're training our front, we do chest, shoulders, biceps, triceps, things like this. But when people go into their back day, typically I find people just see it as back, and they don't see the individual muscles they're trying to train. We want to make sure we're hitting everything efficiently and making sure we actually know what part of our back we're trying to train before every single exercise. In terms of the training methods, it's going to be the same as we always do. It's going to be a load set, back off set. We're looking to log and progress our lifts every single set of every single exercise, because this is going to provide that novel stimulus and it's going to allow us to grow. Now, in terms of my personal numbers here now, I'm most likely not going to be beating every single thing, because I'm not in an off-season setting. If you are in an off-season setting, you should be beating your lifts every single session, as this is going to allow you to grow. Right now I'm in a bit of a maintenance phase. I've kind of plateaued with my strength, and I know what I need to do to push it up and to push more growth, but it's not something that I'm doing right now. I'm kind of just happy maintaining where I am, but we've got the numbers, we know what we need to hit to hold the muscle mass, and I'm just going to take you through the full workout. So let's get it underway, guys. Right, guys, so exercise number 1, we are going to go onto a pull down variation, and in this exercise we're targeting our lats. So just to quickly run through what we're going to be thinking about when we go onto these different movements. Like I said, we're going to be separating each part of our back into individual muscle groups. So we're going to be hitting lat width, lat thickness, and then our upper back as well. So when we're trying to target our lats, we want to make sure our arm path's nice and close to our body, as this is going to allow us to really isolate our lats. And whenever we're trying to target our upper back, we're going to want our elbows, so our arm path flared out away from our body, as that's going to get us more of a contraction in that upper back area. So when we're on a lat pull down like this and we're trying to target our lats, we want to go for anywhere between an underhand to a neutral grip. This is going to allow us to keep that arm path nice and close to our body. If we're going with that overhand grip, and as we pull down, our elbows are going to flare out and it's going to tag in a lot of upper back. This is going to be a single arm movement as well, so a lot of lat work I do like to do single arm, just so we can fully isolate the muscle and really make sure we get that full contraction. We're going to do a few warm-up sets now, and then we're going to go into the working set on 3 plates per side, and we're going for 9 reps on this. And when we do jump on this, guys, I want you to grab it, pull it down a little bit, and make sure before you do any movement, just make sure that that lat is on. So just in this position here, I'm already feeling my lats contracted, and then you can make sure you can keep that contraction through the full range of motion. If you just grab it and rip it, and not really think about the muscle you're trying to target, or not making sure it's engaged, you're just going to get a lot of momentum thrown in there, and then not as much tension on the muscle you're trying to target. So do make sure that lat is engaged, and then drive with lat. Squeeze. Nice and controlled on the way up. And then a 1 to 2 second concentric. A micro pause in the direction change. I need a second before my working. And guys, don't be afraid to take a bit of time between your warm-up sets and your working sets. I see so many people rushing into their sets from the last set, but the amount of time I typically take will be as long as I personally need. There's not a certain amount of time I'll wait. You know, I want my heart rate to come back down, I want my breathing to come back to where it should be, and this is where I'll go into that next set, because the main thing is we're chasing those numbers. We want to be progressing those lifts, and if you rush in too fast, you know, it might be your gas tank that finishes before the actual muscle goes to failure, and you might be missing out on that extra couple of reps, which could, you know, cause a bit more muscle growth. So do make sure you take your time between your sets, no rush. All right. That's 8.5. So half a rep on last week, so we are getting a little bit of progress even in this phase. But over the next couple of weeks, I will be transitioning into that cutting phase, and that's where it's going to be more about trying to hold the numbers that I'm hitting, just to hold that muscle mass as we're cutting down, rather than looking to progress.
How's that leg working?
So, 9 reps. Let's go. Taking it 8.5 on that again. There we go. So on to exercise number 2, which is going to be an upper back row. So we're going to go on to a low row, where we're going with an overhand grip. So like I said, when we go for that overhand grip, our elbows are going to flare out away from our body, and that's really going to target the upper back. So we're going to start with a few warm-ups on this and go into our 2 working sets. So I quickly wanted to touch on straps when we're on pull days, guys. So straps are something I swear by religiously on pull days. Anything where our grip can be a limiting factor, I highly recommend strapping in. The last thing you want is to have to put the weight down before you actually go to muscular failure on the muscle you're trying to target. If you're putting it down because your wrist or your grip's going, then you're not actually getting what you want out of the movement. So invest in some straps. Either something like this, these are the ones I use, or if you want something a bit easier to wrap on, then just go for the figure of 8s. Alright guys, so for this movement, because we're targeting our upper back, we want to make sure we're getting a full protraction of the shoulders, and then a full rotraction followed by a drive as well. So the way your upper back's going to work is that's fully contracted there, and if I really rounding it out, that's where it's stretched out. So it's important that we get that roll across our shoulders to keep the chest firmly in the pad. I like to sit back a tiny bit in the seat just to keep my chest on the pad, just because if I was in here, it's very easy to pull off the pad when you get into that contracted position. So ass back a tiny bit, chest firmly in the pad, and when you go forward for the lengthened position, make sure you do let your shoulders fully protract, and then retract them, initiate with that drive, and make sure you get that big squeeze at the top. So that's set 1 done, which we typically do in a 5 to 10 rep range. Now I'm going to drop the weight, aim for around the 10 to 15, but that's something I'm going to touch on a little later in the workout. Load set and back off set. I'll run over that a bit later. Exercise number 2 done. Right, we're going for another lap movement now. Yes guys, so exercise number 3, we're gonna go on to a single arm underhand low row. So this is gonna be a lat focused movement again, which is why we're going underhand. And like I said, with pretty much all my lat movements, it's not every single time I do them, but pretty much all my lat movements, I do like to do single arm, just because it's a lot easier to get it fully short, so fully contracted, if you can go through that full range of motion, and as well, it's a lot easier to isolate and really feel that muscle working as well. So single arm on this. Arm path nice and close to the body, anywhere between underhand to a neutral grip, and drive that elbow back to your hip. Oh.
What'd you do, Samuel?
Bang my knee. I thought it's actually swollen. Jesus.
Oh, you've actually lost all the veins in that right leg.
It's not ideal, man. So guys, quick one on warm-up sets. So warm-up sets are something I do before every single exercise. So obviously the way we train is very progressive based. We're looking for PBs on every single set of every single exercise. And if you're going into these movements and going for PBs without warming up, you're just asking for an injury really. So the way I approach warm-up sets, I typically do anywhere between 2 to 4 warm-up sets per exercise. And the goal of these sets are not to take away from the load set, so I don't want to be fatiguing myself, but I want to be preparing myself for that set. So to get a lot of blood flowing to the muscles, to get familiar with the movement path and that contraction, so that when I go into the movement, everything feels right. So on this, for example, I'm going to do 3 plates per side. Warm-up set number 1 will be without anything for about 10 reps, just so I can get a good feel for the movement, get used to the movement, but I can't even really feel any weight. Then I might put 1 20 plate on, and then do around 5 reps. So a weight I can just about feel it, but just 5 reps, so I'm not going to fatigue myself. And then I go 2 plates per side, so about 80% of the working load, and I'm going to do 1 or 2 reps just to feel it out, get used to that movement. Then I'll take a couple minutes break, let my heart rate come down, let my breathing come back to normal, and then I go into my working set on that 3 plates per side. So I won't be fatigued from those warm-ups, but I'll be ready for the set.
You're lucky you have me in your life.
Yeah, I know. Everyone needs a grand. Right guys, so exercise number 4, we're going on to a chest supported T-bar row. So this is going to be upper back focused again. So we're going to go for the overhand grip, elbows flared away from our body, really squeezing that contraction up top and make sure you fully protract your shoulders at the bottom to lengthen out that upper back. I just wanted to touch on here as well how fast we should be going about doing each movement, because I see a lot of people going through different movement patterns, different speeds on the eccentrics and concentrics, and different approaches where it comes to switching directions in each rep. So my take on how fast we should be doing each movement is typically a 1 to 2 second concentric, a 3 to 4 second eccentric, and then a micro pause in the direction change. The 1 to 2 second concentric is going to allow us to have a good drive on the way up, really get the muscle short and get a good contraction. The 3 to 4 second eccentrics is going to allow us to stimulate our muscle on the way down as well and keep that tension on the muscle we're trying to target on the way down. And the micro pause in the direction change is going to minimize any momentum that you add into the movement. And as well as that, it's going to keep you safe as well, because typically any injuries we pick up are in the direction changes where you might have good control on the eccentric, where you have that 3 to 4 second eccentric, but as you get to the bottom, you might speed up and quickly bounce out of the hole. And this is 1, adding momentum to the movement, and 2, like I said, it's going to pose an injury risk, and this is where we can typically pick up niggles. Oh, I'm feeling weak today. Feeling weak. So guys, that is both sets done. So we've done 2 sets on the T-bar, didn't film the second. We're now going on to a wide grip lat pull down. So like I said, again, we're going for that wide grip, and this is gonna be an overhand grip. So it is gonna be a lat focused movement, but I'm expecting to tag in a lot of upper back work in this as well. So if you were going for a purely lat focused lat pull down, you're gonna want either a neutral or an underhand grip. Again, so you can keep that arm path nice and close to your body and keep it all in your lat. With this overhand, it's gonna flare my elbows out as they come down. So although I am tagging up using my lats a lot, I'm also tagging in a lot of upper back. So it's gonna kind of bring everything together now. So I just wanted to use this time to quickly touch on why we typically do 2 sets per exercise, so why we do the loads in the back of set. The reason we do 2 sets per exercise is because when we're building muscle, our bodies go for an adaptive response to build that muscle, and there's 2 factors that influence this adaptive response. The first one, which is called mechanical tension, which is basically the load we're lifting, and this is gonna have the biggest impact on that adaptive response. So biggest impact on hypertrophy, biggest impact on the amount of muscle that we can grow, which means that our bodies are gonna respond in the most aggressive fashion to growth by increasing the load over time. So that plays the biggest role there. And then the second factor that influences our muscle growth is blood flow, so metabolic stress. So the reason we do our load set and our back off set, we do the first set in a lower rep range, so that's gonna be in the 5 to 10 rep range. We're looking to recruit all muscle fibers from the get-go, log and progress those lifts. Because we're in that lower rep range, we got a larger load as well, so we're logging and progressing in a decent load with a fair amount of blood flow as well. Set number 2, we're gonna reduce the load for a higher amount of repetitions, so we usually go in a 10 to 15 rep range. We're still looking to take that set to failure, but that higher rep range means we're gonna get more blood flow to the muscle. So it's hitting both of those factors that influence hypertrophy, so we get mechanical tension and metabolic stress both out of those 2 sets. And if we do want to cause any more muscle damage, we can, if you want to add a third set, you can, or you can add an intensifier occasionally on the end of that second set, so something like a drop set or a rest pause. We're not doing any intensifiers today, we're literally just doing straight load sets and back off sets. So that's a quick explanation of why we typically do our 2 sets per exercise.
Who's this one for?
Oh, this one's for Marley. If anyone who doesn't know who Marley is, it's my cockapoo. He's adorable. Alright, what are we going for? Alright, so that's all warmed up. 2 or 3 warm-up sets on this like usual, and now we're going into that working set. So we're looking for 5 to 10 reps on this. So guys, set number 2 on the lat pull down now, so we're going to go for that reduced load, higher amount of reps that we explained before in terms of the load and the back off. Now one thing I want to make sure you're doing when you're doing your lat pull down, so next time you're doing your lat pull down, make sure that you keep swaying with your body to a minimum, and this stands for pretty much every exercise that we do. Really think about what the exercise is doing and what the muscle that you're trying to target is actually doing. So when we're using our lats, all its job is to do is to pull this part of our arm down here or across there. Whereas any other movement that your body is doing is not your lat. So anything else you're adding to that movement is just adding momentum. I see a hell of a lot of guys swinging about on this, chucking their body weight about lifting weights that are way too heavy for their lat to actually load. And by doing this, they're not keeping the tension on their lat and they're just using momentum to move that weight. So like I said, it's the same for this lat movement as it's going to be for every single movement. Really think about the muscle you're trying to target, how it contracts, the range of motion you need to be going through for that muscle, and the movement that that muscle is doing should really be the only movement that's going on in your body. Give or take a tiny little bit of momentum being added in other places, as you know, we're not perfect, we're not here to keep things exactly perfect all the time, but just make sure you are keeping that in mind and not just chucking weight about aimlessly. That being said, guys, still load up and don't train like a pussy. Just make sure you are keeping that control with good load. We can't sacrifice hard training for this perfect form. I want good form with hard training.
You have to take a big load, hey?
You got to take a big load. Right, last exercise of the day. We're on some rear deltoids.
That looks like a man who's taking a big load.
Huh?
You look like a man who's taking a big load.
That was a big load for sure, Graham. Alright, final exercise of the day, guys. We're going on some rear deltoids. So we're going to do a rope face pull, and the way I like to do this is sat on the floor with my foot on the metal bar in front of me, just so it keeps everything stable. So again, the only part of my body that's moving should be the part of my body that's driving with my rear delt. So if you stand up, it's quite hard to not have momentum to the movement. And another option could be sat on like a seated row machine, like a cable seated row, but the problem is there that you're going to be coming from the cable from a low to high position, so you're going to get a lot of trap engagement. So by being down here, we can still go from that high to low to minimize trap engagement, but at the same time it can just stabilize everything. We get a lot more out of the movement. Alright, so guys, that's our session done. So we're going to do a little bit of a physique update afterwards. So I've been in a bit of a maintenance phase for the past probably 2 or 3 months now, just kind of holding similar body composition and holding on my physique at the moment. The plan is to go into a little mini cut over the next couple of weeks, drop any body fat that I am holding off going into Marbella. So that's the plan. I should be going there with James in the next few weeks, as long as my Aussie visa can turn up in time. But I'm a little bit fluffy at the moment, tiny little bit flat as well, I feel, just because I've not been feeding myself as much as I probably should have. But this is where we are at. Currently sat at 98 kg morning weight, fasted, and we're probably going to look to cut it down to about 95, so there's small amounts to come off. But that's where the rig's at currently. I'm going to finish this video off here, guys, so I hope you guys enjoyed this vlog. The next one is going to be my delts and arm session, so I'll hopefully get that one done in the next couple of weeks and up on the YouTube as well. But if you guys did enjoy this, I've got plenty more content like this coming your way, so make sure you hit that subscribe button, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button as well. I appreciate you all. Cheers, guys.